Good afternoon. My name is Dallas, and I'll be going over chapter 13, which is going to be learning and memory. Briefly, I'll go over an overview of the chapter, which is going to be an overview of learning and memory, stimulus response learning, motor learning, perceptual learning, relational learning, amnesia, and long term potentiation. So, the first part of the chapter is going to be learning and memory. Learning is basically when you obtain new information, when you go to class, you can learn from people, you can learn from TV shows, you can learn from anything. Memory is basically taking what you learned and using it. Basically, if you learn what 1 plus 1 is, then you'll be able to tell somebody else what 1 plus 1 is. Basically, just using the information that you learn later. Next, we're going to talk about motor learning, perceptual learning, and relational learning. I think that's, yeah. Okay, so basically, motor learning is learning a skill with the task. Learning a skilled task with the goal in mind. So basically, you can use sports for example. Basketball, you learn how to dribble, and then you learn how to shoot. So shooting, the goal is to get the ball into the hoop. Baseball, the goal is to hit the ball and then run. What else? Basically, I guess that motor learning is kind of, you could use sports as mostly the example, having a goal in mind. Perceptual learning is basically using your sense and sound and visual to differentiate the two. So basically, music or different colors. Relational learning is consequential learning. So basically, if you touch the stove, it'll be hot. Or if you don't check the temperature of the water before you get in the shower, you might burn yourself or it might be too cold. And then we're going to talk about classical versus operant learning. So basically, classical learning is learning by association, which is could be like a smell. If you come home after school and you smell food, then that might mean, okay, it's about to be time to eat. It's about to be dinner time. My mom and or dad is cooking, and we're gonna be eating soon. Or if you hear like the ice cream truck or hear a sound, then it may be the ice cream truck. Which we connected that to salivating. And then operant learning is basically new behavior established through consequences. So basically, I think the book or on the test, it talked about a dog biting or something like that. But basically, if a dog bites, some people say tap it on the nose or like stop playing with it or something like that. Or just consequences. If you do this, then this will happen. For a little kid, if let's see a good example. I don't know. If your mom tells you not to touch something and you touch it and then you get popped. So if it's continuously happening, then you might stop touching it. Or like I said earlier with the water, if you touch the water or touch the stove and you get burnt. So then the types of memory are sensory, short term, long term. So sensory memory is basically using your senses. So Most of the time for me, like I remember faces more than I remember names. So like if I see somebody walking past, then I'll be like, oh, like I remember him or her, but I might just not remember their name. Um, or some people can see a face and remember a name, like, oh, that's so and so, so and so. Short term memory is basically like what happened 5 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago, 20 minutes ago. Long term memory is basically like maybe what happened a month ago, ooh, or even a year ago. Um, so perceptual learning is learning to recognize things. Um, and I think I want to do like basically when you're learning how to drive or something like that. Um, so when I first started driving, I would just look through the rear view mirror, and obviously I learned how to drive on the street before I learned how to drive like on the expressway. Um, So I would just look in the rearview mirror, and sometimes, obviously you may not see a car that's coming. So my dad was the type of he was a yeller. So basically, um, oh, you didn't see the car right there, blah blah. No, I didn't see it. So basically, he taught me to turn my head and kind of look through the back mirror, and um, then you'll be able to see the car. So it's just kind of that's how I learned. Um, Next we're gonna do episodic and cinematic memories. So the episodic memory is basically like a collection of memories and perception of events. I think that's kind of like how um, so perception, like sometimes if you're telling a story about what happened, you're doing it how you perceived it to happen or what you remembered. And semantic memory is basically memory effects. So like what actually happened. If it's a recording, the recording will tell you what happened, and then you can say how you perceived it. The dementia is basically loss of somatic memory caused by progressive degeneration of the lateral temporal lobes. And then we're going to get into our last topic, which is basically amnesia. So amnesia basically refers to the loss of memory such as facts, information, experience. Some people forget their identities. So we're going to do the retrograde amnesia, which is basically trouble remembering things that happened before brain damage. So if you get into a car crash, you might forget that, everything that happened before. And antrograde is basically difficulty learning new information. And then Korsakoff syndrome is the severe um, antrograde amnesia, and also may be caused by alcoholism. So basically, you'll have difficulty remembering things, and you'll also have difficulty learning new information. And that's just gonna wrap up everything, basically the big topics that were covered in chapter 13.